Hello, good evening, good afternoon, and good morning, everyone. Welcome to Connect Africa. We are a bit late, not a bit actually, we are late, but we have had some technical problems, and you can point out immediately by looking at Kwame today. We wanted to overcome. Uh, just a second. Yeah, so I was hearing my echo, sorry. We just wanted to overcome that challenge and, be here properly. But it's okay. The main thing is we bring the information. So we decided to bring it as it is. So for tonight, our topic is, as you may have seen, it's about President William Ruto of Kenya lifting restrictions, visa restrictions for Congo Brazaville. It's not the only country in Africa. President Ruto have done it for other African countries as well. And then for the African diaspora. Now we have, while we welcome this news, but also we have some questions to raise and discuss. So for that, KwameGonza has joined us. Welcome, Kwame.
Thank you very much, Mahlet. Can you hear me very well?
Loud and clear, yes.
Thank you very much. I just want to greet everyone who's watching us, and I want to thank them for patronizing the channel and supporting the channel. We really appreciate everyone, each and everyone who has supported this channel, continuously. So we ask you to continue in that direction and invite also other people, because this struggle that we are engaged in of pushing out the African narrative requires all of us working together. On the side, also what we are doing also is the working with other organizations, the Pan-African organizations, and mobilizing the African civil society into being a forceful group that advocates for a better Africa. So these are some of the tasks that we are engaged in. So we invite you to support also these tasks on the side. Today, as Mahlet mentioned, we want to look at President Ruto's performance. This is not the first time we are talking about President Ruto. We have spoken about him regarding, for example, his speech that he gave in the Pan-African Parliament, which was a very powerful speech. And you can see that all across the continent, as a new president, he has been very forceful. It goes on to show you that certain people actually, they just require to get to positions of power, then they will try to demonstrate that Pan-Africanism within them. So this also goes on to show that the continent is not lacking in leadership, as that it has been mentioned. I know that people like, I think it is Chinua Achebe, who said that the problem of Africa is squarely the problem of leadership. And this has been mentioned very much. But he did not mean that the continent does not have leaders. The continent has leaders, but it's just that those in leadership are not the ones, who are patriotic, towards Africa. So that means that we can, as Africans, examine ourselves within and say, and ask ourselves, why are we not having these types of leaders like President Ruto, President Magufuli, more frequently coming into power? And that, of course, would speak to the question of the political system that we are operating, the leadership system, the system that brings our leaders. That means we should start interrogating, but that is, of course, a topic for another day, which is a much bigger topic of understanding whether the democratic process that we are running is efficient. So we want a system, we should have a system across the continent that allows these types of leaders to emerge, easily without much struggle. So this is the conversation that we want to have, that people like Ruto, should be allowed to come through and to bring policies like what he's been trying to do and what he's been trying to advocate for, forcefully. We remember that he was just sworn in, in February this year, but look at the impact he has had, across the continent. So these are the things which we want to discuss today. Whatever he's doing, but specifically this time, the visa policy that he has been advocating for and he's been pushing for across the continent. Thank you very much, Mahlet.
Thank you very much, Kwame, indeed, for bringing that background and the discussions we have made regarding President Ruto. Yes, so without further ado, we go straight to our talking points for tonight. So we welcome as Africans and Pan-Africanists that the lifting of visa restrictions within the continent and also for the African diaspora. Now, my question is that while we welcome it, I mean, yes, Kenya is one of those pioneer countries in Africa who is lifting visa restrictions for African countries, but still, in terms of being a Pan-Africanist leader or that progressive leader in the continent, it's not really enough for the Africa we want, and for the Agenda 2063, for whatever flagship projects that we have there, like the African Continental Free Trade Area, not to have free movement of people within Africa. So how do you view that Ruto's decision planning, I don't know if he has done it already, welcoming the African diaspora to Kenya without visa, and then some of, I think 45% of the countries out of 55 countries are allowed to come to Kenya without visa. But how do you view that without having a full free movement or welcoming all Africans from all African countries, opening new border for the African diaspora or even for other European or Western countries? How do you view
that? Thank you, Mahlet. Of course, this is a policy that is almost long overdue, looking at the fact that these are some of the policies which the African Union has been advocating for, and this is the purpose for which actually the African Union itself was created. The African Union as a transformation is a transformation from the Organization of African Unity in 2002, and the purpose for its creation was to accelerate the process of integration of the African continent. According to them, of course, economically and consequently politically. That's the purpose of the African Union. But when you look at it, of course, we all know the history of the African Union, that it doesn't have power, to perform the functions it's supposed to. And that is simply because the heads of state have retained that power to themselves. They don't allow the African Union to function. And even when you go back to, of course, to 1963, Nkrumah's advocating was for empowering, a union government. By a union government, what Nkrumah meant is empowering one body so that it can act on behalf of us as Africans, of all of us as Africans. And that is what actually the African Union is supposed to do. And that is what it is abused for. Actually, many people abuse it for. And it is simply because the various heads of state have decided to retain that power for themselves. But even when they have retained that power for themselves, you have things like the African Union passport, a single passport for all Africans, which was launched in Kigali, I think it was 2018. But these are not being followed up. The African heads of state, even though they signed on the issuance, and it was even launched, and some diplomats, of course, across the African continent have these passports, but it was not followed up. That even to date, you go to the East African, community, you see that they are still giving out the East African passport. They actually they commenced recently to give out the East African passport. We go to ECOWAS, you know, in the West African region, they are giving out the ECOWAS passport, even though they agreed to give out the African Union passport in Kigali. All the heads of state, they signed on to this. So then this points to us where the problem is, that the problem is with the heads of state, that they don't respect the decisions of the African Union themselves, and they don't respect the organizations themselves. So when you see once in a while such a leader coming up as President Ruto, you know, trying to empower the African Union or to empower the projects of the African Union, such as a single visa or no visa for all the other Africans on the continent coming into the, you know, the continent, or his country coming into Kenya, then this is very energizing. And of course, people like President Kagame allowed this already in Kigali. You know, when you go to Rwanda, if you are an African with an African passport, you can enter into, you know, Rwanda without a visa. You will get actually a visa at the Rwandan airport. That is where they give you the visa from, 3 months. So, but when you are coming from your country, you don't go to the Rwandan embassy to ask for visa. You don't need that. You just go to Rwanda, just take your visa, go to Rwanda, get your passport, go to Rwanda, and they will put the visa when you reach Rwanda. So it is not actually also that is President Ruto, it is the first time that it has been done, but when he adds on it to what President Kagame has already done in Rwanda, then this accelerates the process that the other countries in Africa, you know, should be, you know, can be encouraged. And countries like you know, Uganda and in Ethiopia, I think it is high time, you know, South Africa, it is high time that they also adopt this, you know, this kind of process, this kind of gesture, this kind of, you know, initiative should be taken on so that Africans can be free, because we are not exploring our continent enough, and the tourism itself, you know, as an industry is affected. Actually, the figures which came out looking at Rwanda, when it allowed Africans to come into Rwanda freely and they will get visa on arrival, they say that Rwanda's tourism was actually increased. You know, the level of tourism increased in Rwanda. And this is what, when you look at other African countries, this is what they are missing out. And when you look at also the Africa Continental Free Trade Area, around 46 countries in Africa, 47 have signed on the Africa Continental Free Trade Area, and 46 of them have ratified them. So if we are going to trade and you guys have accepted as president, then the next thing should be the abolition of visas, you know, on Africans, especially starting with Africans, so that business can be able to move freely. But of course, they justify it with other things, like saying that terrorism and all these other things. These are the justifications which are normally put forward as the reasons why visas are not you know, being lifted. But when people like President Ruto comes up, you know, and pushes these initiatives, I think it is very, very welcoming, and it is very interesting at the same time. But it's very important also that it will help to encourage other African countries to go in that direction. You see that when President Ruto went also when he went to Djibouti, he was speaking in the same spirit. When he was in Kenya and hosted the African diaspora and all the other, you know, Africans on the continent for a business summit, you know, he spoke in the same spirit. So you can see that he's someone who's walking the talk. He's not just somebody who's interested in talking about things, but he's someone who is interested in walking the talk, doing what he's saying. And when you go to Congo Brazaville, where he was, of course, many you know, agreements were written, many MOUs, you know, memorandums of understanding, many agreements were signed between the government of Kenya and Congo. And we know the president, people like President Susu Nguesso Congo Brazaville, has also been vocal in his outlook when it comes to African affairs. If you remember, they just concluded new global finance pact, which happened in Paris. Is one of the people who mentioned that if the Europeans are serious with what they are talking about, that they are reforming the institutions of the IMF and World Bank.
Kwame, actually, I was gonna ask, I was gonna come personally about his action. So now that you bring it, like, stay on your point. Let me just interject. So we have seen these big moves by President William Ruto in the past few months, actually ever since he came to office, ever since he won this election. Like we can talk about, representing Africa in the face of the world, starting from that speech at the Mo Ibrahim Foundation Summit, the one you just have raised, confronting Macron regarding, how IMF, World Bank, and others are exploiting Africa, and then the de-dollarization, the PAPS, the Pan-African Payment System. Yes, just like you said, most of them, they are not new, but it gives it a boost when such leaders bring it and, encourage it or praise them to implement it. Now, but all this huge action, and then we have seen recently the flag movement for his party, about this yellow color for his party, and also now lifting visa restrictions. Can we say that perhaps President Ruto is one of those Pan-Africanist leaders of our time? And if so, what can we see, in the future for Africa? What do you see in the next 5 years? Let's say that with Ruto, if he's going with this pace.
I think I've been one of the first people to say on one platform, which is a Pan-African platform, that President Ruto, if you look at his actions ever since he ascended to power, starting with a speech which was given at the Pan-African Parliament, which I would encourage everyone, if you are an African and you are interested in Africa's development, you should read the speech which President Ruto, or you should watch it, the speech which he gave at the Pan-African Parliament in South Africa. I was the first to point out, one of the first people to point out that President Ruto, I think he's a very good Pan-African leader when you look at his action. He's not just talking about things, but he is also moving in that direction. In that speech which he gave in South Africa, he gave a concrete plan of how Africa should approach the issue of climate change without the West dictating to it. And of course, that is going to be followed up with the Climate Action Africa Climate Forum or Climate Summit that is going to happen in Nairobi. I think it is going to be in August. So he has given a clear plan. He has plans of what Africa should look like when it comes to industrialization in the context of climate change, with green energy. He's talking about green industry. So you can see that he is willing really to move in the Pan-African direction. And of course, some other people even have mentioned that we should be able to protect him because the West may want to kill him. But it should not take us very long as Africans, as African people, to recognize when a good leader comes. And that means we should raise our voices to protect him. Or even to, as he's in a very big position, we should also make our effort. We should make effort to.
I really hope that we are not losing Kwame. It looks like he's frozen. Oh, you came back. Oh, I'm happy. Gone.
Okay.
You were frozen
okay.
for a second.
Oh, sorry. When did you last hear me? So I can come back a little bit.
You just said, okay, so some have been talking about to protect him. Then after that, you can start.
Yeah. So what I was saying is that it should not take us very long as Africans to recognize that this is a very good leader. And in that, we should strive to reach out to him, looking at the position in which he is. Of course, it's not very easy to get to since he's the president. But I think that Pan-African groups and Africans who are interested in the welfare of the continent, if you have ideas, then we need to come together and advance these ideas which we have through him. This should be a gesture which we should carry out. So it should not take us very long, to recognize that this is the type of leader we have been looking for. The fact that the continent has majority or many bad leaders, it should not take us long. It should not throw us in despair and take us long to recognize that a good leader has come. So what I see is that President Ruto is a very good Pan-African leader. Of course, he's not perfect. You cannot say that he's perfect. He has just come to power, and of course, there was some demonstrations in Kenya. Other people, of course, may have their opinions regarding his policies, but still, because no man is an island, no one knows everything. If we come together as Pan-Africans and we have a document which we think that it can back up his policies, the good plans that he has for the continent, then that would be very good for all of us, that we work together, and then we can even get a chance through that to point out to him that, President, we think that this direction here, where you are going here, is not the right way. So, but I think that the Pan-Africanists, they have to engage. We have to engage the good leadership when it comes, across the continent, and we recognize it. But we also have to recognize it. That is the first thing that we have to do. We have to recognize that this is one of the leaders that we have been looking for across the continent.
Thank you, Kwame, really, for that. Now, the other thing, what's really interesting is that maybe we have raised this before, I'm not sure, but really, what does it take for Africa to have actually a borderless Africa? I mean, I know that some researchers have put some barriers or obstacles that's preventing the African countries from making Africa borderless, meaning in terms of movement of people. But those problems are not something that you can get rid of by a day or night, and also countries like continents like the Europe or European Union have those concerns to some extent, not everything, but still they have managed to open their borders. So what does it take for Africa to have a borderless Africa for its own people?
Yeah, so I think that for us to unify the continent and have that borderless Africa is going to take a lot of political will from the leadership of the continent. But but that political will, which in many cases the African leaders have failed to use, like I started when I was starting out. I mentioned that in majority of the situations, they sign documents, but they don't do follow up on them. So that would take us as Africans to hold them accountable to this, signing of documents which they have been signing. We are going to give out, for example, we have mentioned the African Union passport, but the passport, we end up that the passport has not been given. On the other side also, somebody can bring it from another angle and say that maybe their hearts are willing, but there is something that is stopping them that we don't know, that is in the dark. And of course, in that you can speak of what Dr. Chomboli Kwao has mentioned in the past, that our leaders are being controlled from Washington and Brussels and London. She has been vocal about this, that the African leaders, they want to do things, but they cannot do it because they are being controlled from Washington. They are being intimidated in some cases. And of course, that is also, a laudable theory. If you look at the continent and you look all across the continent, you can see that the United States has occupied the continent with military bases with presence in Ghana, for example, presence in South Africa, presence in Kenya, presence in Niger, presence in Cameroon, Nigeria. The United States is present all over the continent, in Uganda, everywhere. So that theory, you can see that it is a laudable theory. So that means then that we as Africans, we have to work together. That you may find that these are not things which are very easy to explain, that the leaders are, they cannot easily explain these scenarios or these situations to their citizens. So that means that we, the citizens, if we recognize this, then that means we have to work with our leaders, but especially starting with those who are progressive on the continent. So it's going to take a lot of political will, but also the citizens, as African citizens, we have to play a major part. And starting with those people who know what is happening in the dark. Because now the United States and Europeans are operating in the dark. So you remember the other day we spoke about the presence of German military on the African continent. It has been in Mali, but no one knows that it has been there. Now the United States is all over the continent, but no one knows that it is there. And so this becomes a problem. So those people who know what is happening across the globe and what is happening within the deeper, parts of the continent, they have to mention this and then mobilize the other people on the African continent to support those leaders, starting with those leaders who have shown the willingness to move in this direction. And of course, on the other side, you can talk of the fact that some leaders, of course, are ignorant about what is happening across the continent. Some of them, they don't know the importance of this, even though they go and sign on these, documents. But again, I think that the ultimate burden and the responsibility for this work lies on the shoulders of the Pan-Africanists, that they have the responsibility, regardless of the fact today that since the 1970s and the 80s, Pan-Africanists, majority of Pan-Africanists were removed from power. People like Kwame Nkrumah and all the other leaders, who were many Pan-Africans across the continent. Regardless of that, Pan-Africanists, even though they are right now on the periphery, they have been pushed by neoliberalism and neocolonialism on the peripheries, still the work has to continue. We cannot, stop and say we have given up. So that confidence that what we are fighting for is the right thing to do should continue, and we should continue to provide that light, that guiding light. So the ultimate responsibility, of that, of keeping the fire of Pan-Africanism, burning and giving direction, lies on the shoulders of Pan-Africanists and, of course, African civil society, to work with these leaders who are willing, and also to bring that information that is necessary to show those leaders who are still adamant, to the benefits that are likely to come from a unified Africa, a borderless Africa. So that responsibility, all of it lies on the shoulders of the Pan-Africanists.
Thank you very much, Kwame. Indeed, yes, some proposals are ratified quickly. Some are not. Mostly, they are not. And I think one of the fastest document to be ratified, not by everyone, but at least like maybe 38%, a little less than 40% is the African Continental Free Trade Area. That thing seems supported by every country, but still some of the huge countries, like, who are considered their economies the fastest growing, did not ratify, including my own country, Ethiopia. Yes, I'm calling names. So it is, as you said, it's difficult. I mean, the African Union cannot do anything. The power is in the hands of the leaders. Thank you. I mean, we knew that. I think as far as for our plan is concerned, we knew this stream will be short, and we have covered all the questions we want to raise. But I want to give a shout out here for our audience or viewers. and just raise a couple of things of their concern. So Kwame, I will ask some few minutes from you. So Aaron Black, Black and Aaron, it's two different people. So welcome and thank you for your comments. So I will read out the first one, okay, by Black, is that it seems the West will soon start raising human rights issues, corruption accusations against President Ruto if he continues raising and prioritizing African or Pan-African issues. Well, I think valid points. That's why Kwame prior during his discussion, he was saying, as some people said, he must be protected. So that's one. The other one, maybe you can address them combining. It's good. This is Aaron. It's good what President Ruto has been doing since he came to power, but at the same time, he has a lot of dirt to sweep off. The money John sneezes. I think like what Uhuru Kenyatta also said. John White, who resides in Kenya, if not what he's doing, gonna be good for nothing. So these are the two concerned. There's another question also, maybe you want to quickly address this, and yeah, we can come back. There's one.
Yeah. So. Yeah. So I'll come to the last one. Can you just come back on the first one?
It's a concern. Yeah, it seems. Yeah, the West.
Yes. I understood that actually is very much related to the second one. When you say, of course, we have to protect him. Of course, those issues will arise, and on that, I would like to compare actually, Ethiopia. What happened in Ethiopia? And then I want to compare those two countries with Kenya. So the difference is that in Kenya, and of course we need to behave like what happened in Ethiopia, that when President Abiy was being attacked by these colonial countries, his people came up to protect him. Okay, that was the first thing that the people did, and then the African people also jumped on board. Other Africans jumped on board to be able to protect him. So that is the responsibility of the Kenyans and the entire African community to protect him. So when this propaganda is raised, then it is necessary for Africans to come out and counter this propaganda. Of course, that propaganda mostly comes from the propaganda machine, which is the BBC, the CNN, and all these institutions and their newspapers and their internet networks. This is where it comes from. And the Al Jazeera, we have seen that Al Jazeera has been taken over by the Anglo-Saxons. What was an Arab network right now has been taken over. When you listen, when you start watching it right now, it has been taken over by people who are Americans, Europeans. Those are the people who are now broadcasting the news. So you can see that Al Jazeera too has been corrupted completely now. So it has become almost like CNN. It's not distinguishable now from CNN and all that. So now this becomes the responsibility, like I said, of the Africans and the Pan-Africanists. And the Pan-Africans, for me, I'll always put the responsibility on them or on us, because Africa in its, development and glory, which our forefathers envisioned, Africa is supposed to be built in the image of Pan-Africanism. Even I think Prime Minister Abiy is the one who mentioned something like this. What our forefathers, the image of our forefathers, the image of Pan-Africanism, that is the one in which we are supposed to build Africa. So, and there's no one who has the custodianship of that image other than the Pan-Africanists, I believe, because they are the ones who have the literature and understand what is in the books. What did Nkrumah say? What did Nyerere, say close to? But especially what did Nkrumah say? And what did he want the continent to look? What did Sobukwe say? And what did he want the continent to look like? What did Thomas Sankara say? What did Marcus Garvey say? That the custodianship of that vision is still in the hands of the Pan-Africans. Those in power, they don't have custodianship over that. So I will always point and put the responsibility, the burden, of that vision, the responsibility of the guidance of the direction of on the shoulders of the Pan-Africans. So I believe that the Pan-Africanists should be able to point out, even if the Kenyans don't understand this. And this is where the difference between Ethiopia and Kenya comes in, that I want to point it out. That Ethiopia, for a long time has sort of been building a political economic system from which has a mixture of African values within Ethiopia, and then of course with a little bit of modernity. Okay, so that means that they have still had control over the media, and they have been able, like you saw during the crisis when the rebels were disturbing in the north, that Ethiopia was able to come and mobilize even the media to protect the image of the government. And that is unlike countries like, when you go to countries like Kenya or Ghana, that they don't have control over the media. The media has been overtaken by the neo-colonial system. So that is the fear which I have
even
for
the
Kenya.
national broadcasts.
Yes, so the national broadcast, in many cases you find that they are on the periphery, that the private media networks have taken over. When you go to Kenya, like the prominent media network is called the Nation Media House. So it is a private one which is owned by somebody who is a foreigner. Even to Kenya, is not a Kenyan. So you can see that these are the ones which will be pouring the propaganda in the country and disorganizing the country and dividing the people, even those who want to protect the president, give them a lot of wrong information. So you can see that when you try to touch them, then they will make a lot of noise across the world that he is attacking media freedom in the country. But these media freedoms which they are talking about, it is media houses which are foreign to the country and whose interest is only to advance neo-colonialism in the country. So now that then becomes the responsibility of Pan-Africanists, to drum up this support for the president, to drum up support for, to bring the right information. And of course, it is a huge struggle. It is a very, big struggle, but it has to be done. If it means protecting him, then it has to be done. What was the second concern? That he spoke about?
I think it's related. Just a second. Yeah, Aaron is saying he has to. He's saying it's good what he's doing, but he has to sweep, to use his own word. He has a lot of dirt to sweep off many John Smiths who resides in Kenya. Actually, very related. You just said how the foreigner who owns now this private media. So those are the John Smiths, aren't they?
Yeah. So that actually goes back to when Kenya was getting independence, that the country was left in the hands of the Western control. The economy was left in the control of the Western systems, the colonial system. When you were talking about the economic system, same thing like you have in South Africa, that the situation is very difficult even for President Ramaphosa when he's trying to run the country, that almost the whole media machinery is Western, in orientation. Majority of the institutions, all the economic system is Western in orientation. So it becomes very difficult even for him to operate, that these people, they are the ones who control the country. And that is why in many cases, actually, I was appreciating what President Ramaphosa was doing in South Africa, because when you analyze really the confines, in which he's operating, the limits within which he's operating, the forces that are against him, if you see that he has been able to do whatever he has done, especially on the foreign policy front, then you have to appreciate what really they are doing with Madame Naledo Pandor, what the ANC is doing in South Africa. You have to appreciate, because they don't have control of the country in majority of the the sectors of the country, economic, land, the media, the financial sector, nothing almost they control. But they have been able to put up at least a reasonable fight. So then that goes also to President Ruto. But these things, of course, you cannot come and do them in one day. It takes time. He has been in power for, let's say, 4 months, but he has been able to do all these things. So for him to transform even the economy and make transformative, put transformative policies in place, it is, you cannot do it in just 4 months. Even in Nkrumah himself, it was difficult. He could not do it in 1 month, that because the institutions were captured by the neo-colonial forces. So it would take you some time. You can see countries like China, it has taken them many years, more than 60 years. You see, since 1949, they have been at it up to date. They are still even up to date. You are seeing that neo-colonial forces are still, trying to push so that they can enter China and disorganize it and destroy it. So they are still at it even today. So it is not a simple journey that you can walk in one month or 2 months or 4 months and then you say it is done. So that is where actually I've been even blaming some people. Have been pushing back on some people who have been very much aggressive on President Ruto, that he has not done very much to transform the economy and stuff like that. So I was asking one guy whether he can be able to do what he's asking for in a period of 4 months that he's asking of President Ruto to, that he should give back the economy to the Africans in 4 months. Is it possible that you can be able to achieve this? It's not very possible. So I think sometimes we need to take a reasonable dose of reality so that we can reason very well and approach the problems from a realistic point of view.
Yeah, thank you. No, really, it's very clear. Your message is clear. Yeah, but one correction, though, it's not. It's going to be almost a year for Ruto since he came to power in August.
Yeah. So yeah, we are in. Remember, we are in July. We have just entered July, and he came to power in. It was in. He was sworn in. I think it was in February, right?
Oh, okay. So, but the election happened in August, but sworn in because he did his trip to Ethiopia in October.
Yes, yes. The president, the official term begins when you are sworn in. So the moment you are sworn in, then that is when your presidency begins.
Okay.
Yeah. So you can see that is about 5 months.
In any case, he's less than a year, and he has been all over the internet. If we compare,
yes, he's less than half a year.
African leaders.
He's actually,
yeah.
Yes, he's actually less than half a year. So you can see, yeah, that the heart is willing. He's very willing. His heart is willing, and the spirit is willing, and he's doing whatever he can. But a country like that has been given into capitalist hands like Kenya for the last 60 years, you cannot just come and transform it in 4 months. Even a year or even 4 years is not enough for you to transform it completely.
That's a point I think we need to take from this, from your answer. And Aaron, I'm sure you are paying attention. I see you also here discussing. Our viewers are discussing amongst each others as well, which is good. You keep it live. But yeah, no, I totally agree with you. But just one thing also to add. Actually, the West have already tried, to alienate Kenya or to create those same formula. You remember when that mob was in Kenya, like a protest led by what is this, the old man, Raila Odinga.
Raila Odinga.
Odinga. I know that people have he has his own supporters in Kenya, but as Pan-Africanists and as who have viewed things that has been in the continent, like Ethiopia, who followed it closely, both of us, we know that it's the same formula, the same thing that they are using. So it's good also to be open and see who is actually guiding Raila Odinga. Is he just alone, or somebody else is on the wheel or on the steering wheel? The other question, okay, Aaron raised is can we say he wants you to answer straight or ask, do you think that President Ruto is as free as he looks?
Yeah, I think that
he continues, can we disclose by today that he is Gaddafi 2.0? Well, I mean, this is, by the way, this is not a click and bait video that we are bringing here. I know some people have said that, but we would like to do our things based on research. But go on, Kwame. Yeah.
Yeah. So of course, I can't say that he's Gaddafi 2.0, because every leader has his own personality. Yeah. Every leader has his own personality. So you can't conclude in that. But from what so far he has done, that's the basis for our analysis. The basis of our analysis is his behavior, his actions ever since he started. His contributions towards what he thinks Africa should be. Okay, and that's why we say his suggestions. That is why we said that you need to go out and listen and watch the speech which President Ruto. I have it on my channel. You can check on Africa Reimagined and check that speech out. The speech which he gave at the just concluded, when it was in South Africa at the Pan-African Parliament. Listen to that speech which he gave, watch it, and take point by point. You will see that you get a lot of information from what he gave. And you will see that there is a lot of solid points that he made, solid policies, actually not just points and suggestions, but really practical ideas that he put out there. But these practical ideas cannot be implemented if we are not working together. And it goes on back to point you to what I'm speaking about in 1963. In 1963, Nkrumah stood and gave serious direction where the continent should go. When you read Nkrumah's speech, the problem is that a lot of us, we don't want to read. I mean, I'm not talking about you, Aaron, that you don't want to read, but a lot of our people don't want to read, even to listen to long speeches and really digest what the person is talking about. But Nkrumah gave a speech, and even right now we have it in words. It's on the internet. You can go out there. The speech which Nkrumah gave in 1963 in Addis Ababa, in May, when there was the formation of the Organization of African Unity. Nkrumah pointed out the direction which we should take Africa in. But this direction and these suggestions and these ideas which he brought, they required us to work together. And he could not implement it alone. He needed the working of all the other African leaders. So that is why I say that we need to pay close attention to what President Ruto is saying. And it should not take us long for us to recognize that this is a very good leader who is very good for Africa. Because let me ask a question. How many of you have seen any leader since 2020 or since 2021, when the Pan-African payment and settlement system was launched in Ghana? It was launched in Ghana. The Pan-African payment and settlement system was launched in Ghana in 2021. How many African leaders have you seen talking about it? He is the first leader to come out and support it in broad daylight and say, this is a good system. Actually, what people are speaking about, de-dollarization, Africa was the first to jump on that bandwagon of de-dollarization in 2021, when Afrexim, Africa Import and Export Bank, came out and designed a system which will allow Africans to transact in our own currencies without the dollar, because it will help us to save more than $5 billion every year. So we lose $5 billion every year because our currency is benchmarked. We use the dollar to benchmark our currency when we are trading. So the Pan-African payment system was designed to remove that problem so that we can save more than $5 billion And that can do a lot, can build schools across the continent, can build healthy facilities across the continent. That's a lot of money which can do a lot of work across the continent. Build boreholes, can drill boreholes and bring water to people who don't have it. So these are all things which can be done. But how many leaders have you seen across the continent who've supported it since 2021? Very few. You can count them, or even you could count none, because we have not had anyone. But when he went to Djibouti, he supported this system. He has been in Kenya, he has supported this system. He has been in South Africa, he has supported this system and said, this is it. This is it, what we need as Africans. Why are we trading? Why do we need the dollar when we are in Africa here? Why does Kenya need the dollar to trade between Djibouti and Kenya? Why? And these are the questions that we should be asking. It is not necessary. You should just come and buy goods in Kenya, and the Africa Import and Export Bank will take care of that business. Just come with your currency, go to your bank in Djibouti or in Kenya, buy things from Ghana, and the Africa Import and Export Bank is going to take care of that. Just go to the bank and pay for your goods in your local currency. So this is what they put up. You don't need to go and buy the dollar. So we have not seen this type of leaders. That's what I'm trying to say. In a long time. So I will not say that he's Gaddafi, but he's a leader in his own capacity as a Pan-African leader. And of course, we are still keeping an eye on him. Like we mentioned, he has been in office for only 4 months.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Kwame, really, for giving, for sharing your time, for sparing your time here to answer our viewers' questions. Although we have planned today, we're going to be covered in 30 minutes, which we did exactly at 30 minute, but it was also good sometimes to address questions raised related to our topic. So there are more questions, but I'm gonna go and say like the speech that Kwame said, President Ruto at Pan-African Parliament. I'm gonna put, when this streaming is through, I'm gonna put it in the comment section for you of his channel. Go and subscribe, not only just viewing or watching the video, you should subscribe as well. I'm gonna put that link. And then the other one is, I think, was it Aaron or Black who raised making African countries anchor states, how the West makes them anchor states, like, for example, in Horn of, or in East Africa, like Ethiopia, Kenya now. There was, some concerns that you raised, but I just wanted to say that those are the things that are imposed by the West. It has some negative connotation to say an anchor state, or superior by what? Why anchor state? I mean, every country is equal. So I'm going to put, Dr. Binyam Misgun, he has really addressed that issue very well. So Aaron, I'm going to put for you that link as well, where he addressed that issue. So that's it for us for tonight. Thank you very much for being here. As we always say, please share the video with your network, with your family, with anyone that you think this will be valuable for Africans, so we can empower each other with information and knowledge. But also, if you wish, which you have to, I think, support us financially, because it helps us really in a big way for us financially. Then I'm going to put also our PayPal. You can find it actually in our description. You can find our PayPal account. Please support and also by sharing the video. That's it for us. Thank you very much, Kwame.
Thank you very much, Mahlet. And thank you very much to our viewers. Like Mahlet has mentioned, support the channel. Invite others. If it's your first time, if it's your first time to watch and to come to this channel, try and subscribe. And also invite other people, to the channel, so that we can work together. We can not only learn together, but we can also work together. We are not only learning together, we are also going to work together and and share ideas on how we can contribute to our continent, because we all agree that these are changing times, and these times require us to act as Africans, and it's only when we are acting that we can make a change across our continent. And all of us have to contribute towards this process of making a better Africa. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I just see one comment from Aaron. He's asking, okay, do you accept suggestion of topics of discussion? Is it possible? Yes, it's one of the things we have been saying. Please suggest to us, send it to our email. And definitely we do, as we always say, we are not here for a click and bait. We do our research and we come back to you with what we have found out, and then we can complement each other. If there's anything, you can also say in the comment section. So yeah, please go ahead and suggest a topic you want us to bring. And yeah, thank you everyone. Yes, okay, I just wanted to read out one comment. It doesn't need an answer. Many people in Africa do not understand PIA. I think that's President Isaias Afwerki and his policies towards Africa and the West. They only see his duration in power, as they call him a dictator. I just read, although we closed it. I do agree with you. I mean, no one is, as Kwame said, perfect. We have all leaders have their weaknesses, but there's definitely, I can say this 100%, there are things that African leaders can learn from the Eritrean president. I know I'm gonna get a lot of hate for this, but I don't care. I say that. So have a good evening, everyone. Thank you. Bye, Kwame.
Bye-bye.
Ciao.